And mahalo for having me speak. It's a great honor. It's a very important day in history. January 17th, 1893 to January 17th, 2015, 122 years. The United States has already admitted that but for its landing of Marines right here, and but for its use of force, but for its violation of international law, there would be no question today that this is the Kingdom of Hawaii. They put into power a puppet government. They call it the provisional government. But it was only 13 people. They went over to that building there, and with clerks and people eating their lunch, they read a proclamation saying, the kingdom is overthrown. Anybody can read a proclamation. Anybody can read a piece of paper. Where was that power? Where did they take control of Honolulu? Did they take control of Maui or the Big Island? No. Under international law, they never had control and sovereignty over the Hawaiian Islands.
Did that fix the sound, Uncle?
Check 1, 2.
Oh, you turned it off.
That was pretty loud for being turned off. So we're at one stage. The United States has apologized for helping those who overthrew the Hawaiian Islands, but they haven't told us the real story, which is they planned. Their literature, their works, their documents, their statements show that the United States was in on this from the beginning. We may as well have been overthrown by the United States. They did it. We were overthrown by the United States. That day was the first day of the occupation of the Hawaiian Islands by the United States of America. They lowered the Hawaiian flag and they raised the American flag. The Hawaiian flag was raised again when Minister Blount came to study the international law questions, the illegality of the overthrow. He concluded for the next president that it was in violation of international law, it was a violation of the Constitution, and on March 1st, he raised the Hawaiian flag again, much to the dismay of those who were in the provisional government. He couldn't do anything about them. They stayed in power. A few months later, in December of 1893, December 18th, President Cleveland, after reading the report, made a promise to the United States people and the people of Hawaii that he would restore the Kingdom of Hawaii. He agreed that it was a violation of international law. It was a violation of the treaties what the United States had with Hawaii. He promised to restore. There was never, on January 17th, 1893, a surrender. There never was a surrender. The Queen yielded her authority to the President of the United States to do the right thing.
Go.
Keep turning the mic off.
So you keep turning them off, Uncle.
All right.
Okay. It's okay.
Okay. What I will go back to is that there was never a surrender. You all know that. There was never a surrender. She yielded her authority because she was brilliant. To have fought with the United States would have given them the excuse to claim they had conquered the Hawaiian Islands, to claim they had subjugated the Queen. She said, I know the law of nations, you know the law of the nations. I am not going to commit my forces, which could destroy your forces, but you would just retaliate by landing more Marines. So she yielded her power to the President of the United States, her police power, to do the right thing. And he did the right thing. He said the right thing. He said that I'm going to restore the Kingdom of Hawaii. Now there was this talk that she wouldn't give clemency to the annexationists. Well, she agreed eventually that she would give clemency to the annexationists. So there was a deal there. There was an arrangement, a treaty by which the President of the United States agreed to restore the Kingdom of Hawaii. That president was not re-elected. In 1896, we had a new president, William McKinley. McKinley favored annexation. So one of the first things he did was propose another treaty of annexation, a treaty of June 16th, 1897. And that treaty, the Queen spoke out again. She spoke out even though she was no longer, according to the annexationists, the Queen. She said, this is not legal. The treaty should be defeated. And you know of the Coué petitions, the petitions that were signed by 20,000 or so or more Hawaiians that protested against the treaty. Those went to Washington. Senators came here to investigate. They claimed and they argued that no territory of the United States had been taken without the consent of the people. The governance of Hawaii is an exception. The taking of Hawaii is an exception. Years before, the United States had planned to annex Santo Domingo. The requirement was the people of Santo Domingo had to approve of that. The people did not approve of that. So we did not take Santo Domingo. But in Hawaii's case, there was no questions, no plebiscite, no election or vote as to whether the United States of Hawaii, United States of America, was the appropriate authority for Hawaii. Now, 20 years ago, I began to do research on the issue of how did Hawaii become part of the United States? The overthrow that we acknowledge today and we mourn today was not the basis of the taking of Hawaii. The United States claims, and you can look it up in the official histories of the State Department, that it annexed Hawaii by a joint resolution. 20 years ago, I went into the papers of the U.S. Congress and I read the debates in the joint resolution. And the senators who opposed it said, this is impossible. No joint resolution of the United States can acquire another country. Countries are equal. Nations are equal. The sovereignty of Hawaii is equal to the sovereignty of the United States. It doesn't matter which is larger or which is smaller. The United States has no sovereign power to acquire by its legislation a country other than its own. If the United States could pass a law, a mere law, to acquire Hawaii, Hawaii by its legislature could pass a law to acquire the United States. And so the joint resolution, everyone knew, could not take Hawaii. The reason they went and did a joint resolution was because they could not pass a treaty. All territory acquired by the United States in its history has been acquired by treaty. Even Texas. Texas was not acquired by a joint resolution. It was acquired by a treaty between the Republic of Texas and the United States. So there's no Texas precedent. The idea that you need a treaty is fundamental. There's only two ways to take territory, by force or by consent. The United States did not demonstrate the necessary force to conquer Hawaii. It has never conquered Hawaii. Conquest requires the complete subjugation of the people, the domination, the end of the government of the Kingdom of Hawaii. They never showed the end of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The Kingdom of Hawaii operated under another name. The people who were still in the offices of the Department of Education, the Department of Public Instruction, the Department of Interior, the Hawaiians continued to work. They did not take over Hawaii. So if they did not take over Hawaii by force, was there consent? Well, the people never consented. And the question has always been, did the government of the Republic of Hawaii consent? It never consented. The Treaty of 1897 was ratified by the United States, by the people, by the Republic of Hawaii, but never by the United States. Let me repeat that. It's the United States that never ratified the Treaty of 1897. So the treaty is invalid. There is no treaty. There is no treaty. 1. 2. The joint resolution has no power to acquire territory beyond the United States. It's a law of the United States. 3. The United States in 1900, in the act providing for the territory of Hawaii, admits that the territory of Hawaii does not include the Hawaiian Islands. In Section 2, defining the territory within the area within the territory of Hawaii, the Organic Act says only those islands acquired by a joint resolution are in the territory of Hawaii. Now, a joint resolution cannot acquire any territory. So there is nothing in the territory of Hawaii. It was an admission by the United States that it had no power over Hawaii, it had no title to the ceded lands. The United States claims two things from the joint resolution. It claims that it took sovereignty over Hawaii, and it claims to have taken in fee the ceded or stolen lands, the Crown and government lands of the Kingdom of Hawaii, the 1.87 million acres. Now, the joint resolution never had power to do anything. So we have two arguments. One is they have no sovereignty wherever they are, whether they're on public lands or on private lands. And two, they don't have sovereignty and fee interests and fee ownership over the stolen lands known as the ceded lands, the Crown and government lands. So the joint resolution is what they rest their case on. It is false. They themselves, their own senators in the congressional record, speak about it being false. They passed it because they could pass it by a majority vote. A treaty takes 2/3 of the senators. No bunch of senators wanted to pass it by 2/3. But they could get, during the Spanish-American War, a majority of the senators to vote for the joint resolution. They just did it to please the president. He was in a war with Spain. He wanted a coaling base in Hawaii. They didn't know whether or not this was going to happen, but they voted for the joint resolution. But no joint resolution can acquire territory, the territory of Hawaii. So we have established what? There was no treaty. We've established that the joint resolution passed is only a law. It's not a treaty. It doesn't have the 2/3 consent of the United States Senate. It had only a majority of the United States Senate. But a law of the United States cannot acquire territory in another country like Hawaii or Japan and cannot reach out and just take territory. If that were true, all of the nations in the world could pass laws acquiring each other, and it would be utter chaos. 3, in 1900, the United States confesses and admits in the act creating the government of the territory of Hawaii that it did not acquire any islands. It says, and it tries to fool people, and it has fooled people all these years, for 122 years. It says that Hawaii consists of the islands acquired by a joint resolution. It doesn't say the islands of Maui or Kauai or Lanai, Oahu are in the territory of Hawaii. It says only one thing. It says that if you're an island and you were acquired by the United States by a joint resolution, you're in the territory of Hawaii. Now, no islands, no territory at all can be acquired by the joint resolution. So there is nothing in the territory. Now, that caused problems during the territorial period. People didn't know. They were confused. They didn't know, for example, whether if you flew from one island to the other island, were you still within Hawaii? Because that was the law of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The Channel waters were part of the Kingdom of Hawaii, but not part of the territory of Hawaii. So when it came to statehood, they couldn't come up with any better description of the state of Hawaii than they had for the territory. What they said again was, what was in the territory is now in the state. So what was in the territory was nothing. Not because I'm saying it, not because you believe what I'm saying, or not because we think this is true. It is their law. It's Section 2 of the Organic Act. The Admissions Act, which created the state of Hawaii, Section 2 says the same thing. And you remember, some of you have probably heard that there was a vote on June 27th, 1959, which the people of Hawaii were asked the first question: do you want to become a state? Yes, 94% of them did say they wanted to become a state. But question 2 was more important. Question 2 was, do you agree to accept the boundaries of Hawaii as established by the federal government? And those boundaries were, you're going to be the same size as you were in the territory. That's 0, nothing. Manini, small, nothing. You can have a state, but there's nothing in it. So they tied the two together. If you don't vote for yes on number 2, which makes you nothing, you won't be a state. But if you vote for yes on number 2, you become a state which has nothing. They've been trying to fool us, and they have fooled us all these years. But this research came out in 2014. These studies and my speaking points out that the United States itself has admitted it doesn't have jurisdiction over Hawaii. So if it doesn't have jurisdiction over Hawaii, what's it doing here? It's occupying Hawaii. It is occupying Hawaii because it doesn't have jurisdiction. If it's occupying Hawaii, certain rules of international law apply. When they took the $70,000 from me by penalizing me for saying this 20 years ago, they violated those laws. That was a war crime. And so I said in September that there are war crimes going on in Hawaii. Nobody wants to believe it. If Hawaii is occupied, different rules apply. The Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet is in charge of Hawaii. He is supposed to proclaim a military government. He hasn't done that. They keep avoiding their responsibilities. They're supposed to leave as soon as possible. They're supposed to leave once their military mission is over. What was their military mission? To defeat Spain. How long ago was that?
Over 100 years.
Over 100 years. They defeated Spain. Right now, some people in Spain want to arrest them for war crimes under universal jurisdiction. But the laws of occupation have never been acknowledged. The worst violation was letting other people settle in Hawaii so that Hawaiians were outnumbered. They let in millions, and not millions, but hundreds of thousands of people, gave them the right to vote. Hawaiians had the power in the polls in 1893. There were 14,400 registered voters in 1893. 9,900 of them were Native Hawaiian. They never got to vote during the territorial period for the President of the United States. The President kept letting in more and more settlers who thought they were American. So we have a situation now where we are now numerically the minority in Hawaii. But if we are nationals, if we look at ourselves as nationals of the Kingdom of Hawaii, we are the majority. So every time someone says, you are an indigenous person, they're making a story that, oh, you were like barefoot and wearing lava-lavas, so that makes you a person of the land, and therefore that's where you get your rights. No, we get our rights because Hawaii was a nation state. It was a protectorate of England until 1843. In 1843, Britain and France recognized Hawaii. In 1844, the United States recognized Hawaii. The question is a simple one. What has changed that? It wasn't the overthrow. You can't lose your nationhood by overthrow. So this is not the event. There is no event. The burden is on them. And in their courts, the burden is on them to show how they got Hawaii. That's the simple question. We were a nation, the Kingdom of Hawaii. When did that end? Did they exterminate us? No. Did they dismember us? No. Like they did in Yugoslavia. Did they extinguish us? No. There's nothing that they can point to. It's an embarrassing, humiliating episode in American history. But they used Hawaii as a model for taking over the Panama Canal, securing lands from the nation of Colombia that they created into a state called Panama. They even used it in Vietnam, where they supported a puppet government under Diem. They've used it around and around the world, and it starts here and it ends here. It ends here. The American people did not want to annex Hawaii. What I said to you was the United States never ratified the treaty. They should look at what they did themselves. Several months ago, there's an official history of the United States If you look in Google and look up Office of the Historian of the State Department, you'll find a history of the United States that's official. Several months ago, they took down the Hawaii site. It was too embarrassing. They had admitted on pretext Hawaii was annexed based on the Spanish-American War. But I want you to go in Google and look up Spanish-American War in the Office of the Official Historian of the State Department. And you'll find the paragraph that was there as to the history of Hawaii. And it says, the United States, by pretext, annexed Hawaii on the purposes of facilitating the Spanish-American War. They forgot that we have skills, that we know how to use the computers as well. Now the question today is, people don't want Hawaiian independence. Why? Because for them it's a good way of life, but it's not a good way of life. How are they going to afford to live in Hawaii? How are their children going to be able to buy a house? Who can buy a house today? Nobody. They're selling it to foreigners, immigrants. Look at Matson. It's only one shipping company that goes between the United States and Hawaii. If we were independent, every country would compete with Matson, and we'd have much lower rates in terms of our housing rates. They've invaded Hawaii. They're building up Hawaii. They're making us a service economy. People have to work 2 or 3 jobs. And especially hard on the Hawaiians, on us, because we have to struggle to keep our culture alive at the same time as we make a dollar. Look at the people without homes. They're all over the place. Look how many are Hawaiian. Look at the people with diabetes. How many are Hawaiian? Look at the people in the prisons. 60% Hawaiian. So these people are protesting in their own way what America has done to Hawaii. It has made this from what was once a sustainable place where everyone had a home, everyone had taro, everyone had a place, everyone had their ohana, everyone had education, without even touching the groundwater, without even having money, to a place where money is everything. I say Keakua did not have this in mind. This is not the plan. The plan was for us to wake up. The plan was for us to become knowledgeable and intent and understand and do something. And we will do it the Hawaiian way, because this is Hawaii. We will do it spiritually. We will do it with nonviolence. That was the Queen's example. That was the example of Kamehameha III when the British came and took over Hawaii for 6 months. He went into the mountains and prayed that the life of the land be perpetuated in righteousness. And he was right. It's only a question of patience. It took a long time, but what's 100 years in the lifetime, the span of time of our ancestors? It comes down to us. The world is watching us. Our kupuna, they protested the treaty and stopped the treaty. The kapuna stopped the Americans from passing the treaty, ratifying the treaty. Our kapuna are looking at us and saying, we gave you a legacy. We gave you the islands back. We gave you tools to fight. Our queen gave you the idea that the kingdom still exists. It does exist. You use your education, use your wits, use your strength, use your multitudes to overpower these misimpressions, these lies, and these falsehoods. We're living in lies. We're living in falsehoods. It becomes comfortable. We get by. But we owe it to people more than ourselves to end these lies. We owe it to our generations in the past, our kupuna, and especially to the generations of the future. Where are your children going to live? How are they going to remain Hawaiian? There are more Hawaiians who live in the continental United States than live in Hawaii. They can't come back until we prepare the ground. Mahalo. I wish you well. I wish you well on this very important day, and I wish us a very good 2015. 2014 was dramatic, important. It changed things. Information changed things. It's going to be new information, new fights, new battles, new conquers, and new victories in 2015. I wish you all a happy new year and the best of health. Thank you very much.